All right, hello guys. I know we did not get to cover as much in class as I wanted to. We got through most of the word problems all right. I've typed up some details on how to do each of those word problems, but we did not get to cover the data analysis section. Real quick, I'm going to go ahead and delete this. All right, so question 9 on homework 2.6 is a question about this data. Go ahead and pause the question and read it right now. If you have already read it and want to move on, I will summarize essentially what the question is asking. They've got some data here. It says that they collected the ages of different people. They picked a representative age from each group. So the 15 to 24-year-olds are going to be represented by the value 19.5, kind of just picking a representative age in between 15 and 24. And they asked these people, all right, well, how much do you make? And the median of all of their answers was this. So effectively, what I see here is a set of inputs and a set of outputs. This is data points representing age and data points representing how much money they make. So some interesting questions I might want to ask about this data would be like, all right, if I am 23 years old, what income am I expected to have? Well, 23 is not on here, right? I don't have a data point for 23 specifically. So generally speaking, what you want to do is come up with an equation that kind of goes through all these points. It doesn't necessarily have to pass through them perfectly. That would be a little too difficult, but I want them to be as good as possible. So that is called quadratic regression or linear regression. The general term is a regression. And the name in front of it, whether it's linear or quadratic or polynomial or whatever, is the function that you decide fits your data best. So if you see data that forms a line, you want to consider linear regression. If you see data that forms a parabola, you're going to want to do quadratic regression. So the first thing I need to do is see what these points even look like. And there's a couple ways to do this. I'm going to show you how to do this on both Google Sheets or a TI-84. If the TI-84s are available in the Urban Life Mile, you can just borrow them from us. But if you don't own one and you're trying to do this at home, Google Sheets is free. And Excel works exactly the same way, and all of you guys have access to Excel as being part of a GSU student. Like you get that as part of your tuition. So if you click on this link, it takes you to a Google Sheets that I kind of just preemptively set up as a tutorial for how to do this. So here's my little step-by-step tutorial, but I'm going to show you how to do this kind of live. What I'm going to do is I'm literally going to take my data and I'm going to copy paste it. Now, unfortunately for you guys, it's not easy to copy paste off of Pearson, so you're probably going to have to manually type this in. But as for me, I already did my time typing it in, so this is what I got. Okay, cool. Now that I have my data in here, I can just hit insert and then scroll down to where you see chart. Yeah, there it is, chart. And Google Sheets is smart enough to know that my data is right here, and it automatically picked a chart for me. If it doesn't do that, you want to click on chart type, make sure it says scatter chart or like scatter plot, scroll down if you don't see it. It's already on scatter chart for me. Then you want to tell it where your data is. And you can do that just by clicking with the mouse. So you can see I'm changing the range for the data. I'm going to leave it at what it was because that is where my data is. Next up, I need to tell it where my X values are and where my Y values are. It was smart enough to know that my first column was my X values, but if it didn't know that, then you could just click on the dropdown and choose the X. Same thing, series is what they call the Y values. So just click on this dropdown and pick median income for your Y values. And at this point, we're basically done. This is what my graph looks like. So if I wanted to pick the right answer on Pearson, I would look at all these options, and clearly this is the only one that looks even remotely close. Okay, but like I said, you might want to do more with this data. You might want to say like, okay, well, what am I expected to be making as a 23-year-old? Well, in order to answer something like that, you can find a trend line or a line of best fit. The term for doing this, or the fancy way to say this, the term for doing it would be regression. Now, the kind of regression depends on what your data looks like. So if my data looks like a line, I would want to do linear regression. If my data looks curvy, I would want to do polynomial regression. In this case, this looks pretty much just like a parabola, so I want to do parabolic regression. So the way that I do, or the way that I add the trend line on here, or the way that I add the regression on here, I want to go to Customize over here, hit Series, and scroll down until you see trend line. If I click on trend line, you could see by default it puts a line in. It's not smart enough to know that I want a quadratic one, so I have to tell it. I click on, whoopsie, I click on the type and I make sure to choose polynomial. And it starts off by giving me a polynomial of degree 2. That's good, that's a quadratic, that's what I want. So it draws this line for me, and I would say, yeah, that line looks pretty good. It almost hits all the points directly. So let's say I wanted to know what function this is. You would hit label, click on none, and choose C equation or use equation. And it gives me my equation right here. This is my parabola that's drawn for me. This is the equation of it. So for the rest of the questions that are on the slide, or over here, what type of relationship? We decided this one. This looks quadratic. This is an upside down quadratic, so it's going to be a negative a value. And even if you didn't know it was supposed to be a negative a value, you can see just by the trend line, my a value is 44.6 or negative 44.6. So you could see that it's predicted to be negative as well. Okay, so next up, use the graphing utility to find the quadratic function. We just did that. It's the one that I found. I just have to type in all the icky numbers into the boxes. And finally, it says use the function found in part B to determine at which age the individual can expect to earn the most income. So here's the important part, most income. This is a parabola, and it's an upside down facing parabola. So this is going to have a maximum, and you can see it kind of right there, sort of in the middle, just hovering over it with my mouse. It's about what this looks like. So all I need to do is find the vertex of this parabola, and you can do this just by using this equation. Honestly, throw it into a calculator, like literally Google vertex finder. Alternatively, you can use your negative b over 2a and manually compute this. I would not recommend that because these numbers are really large and the chances of you making a mistake is pretty high. So just use a calculator for this to find the vertex. You can even throw this into Desmos, and Desmos will find the vertex for you easily. Unfortunately, I don't think Google Sheets will let you do the vertex just off of this, but it will tell you the equation. All right, and this is how you tackle the data analysis that was on the last slides. There's only a little bit more here. This is just asking you what the vertex is. It says, what is the peak predicted income? So you just find the vertex and that'll tell you what it is. And it asks you, all right, well, which one of these has the right picture on it? Without even thinking, I know it's this one because these guys don't even remotely look the same as what I had on Google Sheets. So let's say I wanted to do this using a TI-84 or like one of the calculators that are allowed for the test. I'm gonna go over here and show you how to do this. All right. Desmos, no, not Desmos. I want this one. All right, so here's a simulation of what your TI-84s kind of look like. This is just like an online version of it. So the first thing that I want to do is make sure that my stat plot is on. So I want to hit second y equals and make sure that this is selected to be on. So it was actually switched off, and it's a good thing I did that. And you'll know it's on because you can see plot 1 is highlighted. Okay, now I have to actually get my data into the calculator. So the way that I do that is I press the stat button right here, stat, and then edit. These L1, L2, L3, L4, this is just where you're going to store your data. L stands for list. So here would be my, what was it, my 19.5, my 29.5, 39.5. This is going to be my ages. 49.5, 59.5, and I think it was 69.5. I believe that was all of it. Yeah. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and have Google Sheets up on another monitor for me so I can type the numbers in. Now all I need to do to get to the second line is just press the arrow over here. So this is going to be 10963. All right, so I fast forwarded to me having all of the numbers in, and this is what I get. Hopefully I didn't make a typo, although we're going to find out really fast if I did. Okay, so now that my data is all in here, I want to hit, I believe it is stat calc. So I'm normally on the edit screen, you press the arrow key to go to the right, and that hovers you onto calc. Now, all of this stuff is cool and you can look at it if you want, but the one we're interested in is quadratic regression. We saw that from Google Sheets, but let's say you didn't know that you wanted to do quadratic regression. And let's say you wanted to graph the data first. I'm going to hit my zoom and then go all the way down to zoom stat. When I do zoom stat, it automatically decides what window you should be using to view your data that's in the list 1 and list 2. So it's smart enough to know that like, okay, well, this is where my points are. So it's going to choose the window that shows you all of your points. And now looking at this clearly, I could see that it is quadratic, and then I would know, okay, I need to do a quadratic regression. So I'm going to press enter on number 5. By default, it tells you that your X values are in the first list and your Y values are in the second list. You can store this equation into one of your Y values if you wanted to. I'm not going to bother with that right now. I'm just going to scroll down and hit calculate. And now you can see it's telling you what your A value, your B value, and your C value should be. And let's compare this to what we got on Google Sheets. So over here, if I look at the trend line that I see, this was their equation. You can see that I've got negative 44.57. Looks like they rounded it to negative 44.6. I'm going to have 4,223, 4,223. And you can see this last number is the same as well. So you get the same equation, whether you do this on Google Sheets or on a calculator. It's the only difference is I've got a few more digits on this calculator over here than I do on Google Sheets. I think there is a way to get it to show more digits, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. But this should be okay. Yeah, this is how you do it on a TI-84 and on Google Sheets.